So apologies to the people who are online. The record didn't start when we tried it out, so we haven't gone through that much. We've just introduced the session, and the first session is on career branding, which is, Mary Jane is now covering. Okay, sorry about that, Mary Jane.
Okay, thanks, Orla. So yeah, so in terms of career branding, it's no different to the branding of products when we're in the shop or when we're out shopping. So I just wanted the people to have a look at the two images that are up in front of them in terms of the sneakers and the coffee cups. And I just wanted people to pop into the chat what comes to mind when they see the different brands of the products. Okay,
I
great.
guess you'd be thinking about the value proposition behind it and the name behind it and
Yes. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
branding behind it, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So an image is created, a concept of value, and a concept of awareness. Yeah. Great. Okay. So it's just to be thinking about yourself when it comes to looking for jobs. What you're actually doing is selling yourself. I know it's not really a pleasant concept, but you are selling yourself as a product to a prospective employer. Okay. And you paint a brand of yourself and you paint an image of what you bring to the employer. So if you just look at that image for a few minutes, this person isn't actually saying anything. You haven't seen their CV, you haven't seen their LinkedIn profile. And can people just pop into the chat? What comes to their mind when they see this image of this individual? Professional. Okay. Anything else from anybody? Pleasant, happy, professional. Does it look like a person that you might potentially like to work with? Okay. Oops. There we go. So yeah, a picture paints 1,000 words. And what comes to mind when people see this image of this musician? Okay, so Lady Gaga is really good at standing out from the crowd and differentiating herself from everybody else. And it's no different in the employment market. Okay, so the four pillars of modern selling to help you take the next strategic step in your career are establishing your personal brand, expanding your network, engaging with the value that you bring, and managing your connections and elevating your relationships with those people. And that is really the secret sauce to kickstarting your career. At the end of the day, the main marketing concept here is that people buy from people, and there's a know, like, and trust factor. And that can be seen in an image and how you present yourself in your CV documents and on your LinkedIn. So the beauty here is your personal brand. It interlinks with how you see yourself and how others see you. And as the founder of Amazon has said, a brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. So it's this perception that people have of you, this image, and this brand that you create for yourself. Okay, so again, just to reiterate the point, it's all about standing out from the crowd and differentiating yourself from other applicants that are going for the same job. And how you do that is by utilizing the whole concept of personal career brand. So a really nice way to start thinking about this is to consider your background, your education to date, the degree, the skills that you've learned, some of the subjects that you've really excelled in, what subjects you're really strong in, and what skills did you acquired while you've been in college. But not alone that, it's looking kind of broader and at the bigger picture. So when you think of your brand, you also will want to be thinking about other positions of responsibility that you've had. You might have engaged in volunteering, you might have been a class rep, you might have been a member of a club or society, you might have taken on some additional responsibility on a board. There's other achievements that you've done outside of your educational achievements. What are your values? And when we're talking about values, we're talking about your professional values, which are what is important to you in a role and what is important to you in a prospective employer. I know from speaking to students in recent months, social responsibility, environmental awareness are very top on the agenda for a lot of students. So, bring a flavor of that with you into your LinkedIn profile and into your CV. So again, there's lots of useful resources out there to kind of get a really good picture of who you are and what skills and strengths that you bring in. So I'm going to share in the chat later on some free ways of accessing values profiles. And I'm also, and just to mention, it's via character, and I'll share that in the chat later on. And in terms of some really good strengths profiles that are free are the also on via character, and there's also strengths profiler. There's a free introductory profile. And the beauty of using those profiling tools is at the end of the day, you know yourself better than whatever any profile is going to key out, but it does give you beautiful vocabulary that you may not be using, and vocabulary to talk about yourself in your CV and on your LinkedIn profile and at interviews. And it's very important, to be authentic, to be yourself. And who often comes to mind when I think about this is Graham Norton, a really successful TV host, and he's truly himself, and that's what makes him unique. That's his personal brand, and it's that know, like, and trust factor as well. And again, your character. Are you positive? Are you enthusiastic? What's your track record? Are you reliable? Are you punctual? All of these things feed into the personal brand. And another important point about personal brand, a lot of it is what you're actually showing people. It's not what you're telling people, it's how you show up. Are you on time? Are you presentable? Are you making eye contact? Are you confident? Are you talking? Are you asking questions? All of that feeds into the image that you portray to any prospective employer. Okay, and I'm going to move on to LinkedIn, and I have a lot of really good notes on LinkedIn, and I will share those with you following the presentation. But the majority of the time I'm going to use today is it's going to be on actually doing a demo and kind of going through my own personal profile and the key items to populate to set your LinkedIn profile up for success. So just to kind of set the scene, there's
Mary
over
Jane?
Yes.
Could I just ask you just a question from Robert about what was the strengths profiler and what was the other one you mentioned?
Yeah, so it's via character.
Via character.
And strengths profiler. And I'll pop them into the chat, Orla, when I'm finished presenting for Robert and for everybody else. Perfect. So yeah, so I'm assuming that most people have a LinkedIn profile at this point that are on the call, and today will be more about like maximizing and utilizing it to the greatest potential that you can at the present moment. So it's an incredible recruitment tool. Over 70% of companies are reaching out to candidates on LinkedIn. It's really the first digital expression that you're going to be making to any prospective employer. And like a tip would be to follow companies that you'd like to work for, and connect with some employees that are working for those companies. Now you can see to the left hand side of the screen there the LinkedIn Ultimate Cheat Sheet. It's not very easy to view on the side, but I will also be popping that into the chat for people to download and take with them. Okay, so just to cover off in the 12 steps that I'll be running through today for a standout profile, I'll be talking about your profile picture, your banner, your customizing your URL, setting your profile to being open to work if that's relevant for you, your headline and your elevator pitch, updating the industry, updating your location, your LinkedIn bio, your work experience, and adding media and content to your work experience, adding skills, requesting recommendations for other people that you've worked with in the past or engaged with, and listing your accomplishments on your LinkedIn profile. I'm just going to share my own personal LinkedIn profile with you here now. So it's now on the home screen, and you can see across the toolbar at the top. I'm going to just go over here with the cursor and click on me and view my own profile. So I'm logged in here now to my own personal profile. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to start with here is my profile picture. So if you want to update your profile picture, you just simply have to click on the profile picture. My picture is a professional one that I got taken by a photographer. Prior to that, I had a picture up that I got taken in my kitchen with a white wall behind me when I was like dressed for work and presentable looking. So just in terms of, setting the visibility of your profile picture, I have it clicked here so that anyone can see it. Because there's a huge amount of research out there that the profiles with profile pictures get an awful lot more hits and get an awful lot more hits from recruiters. Okay, so I would really recommend that everyone has their profile picture accessible for viewing to anyone. And it's actually feedback that I got from people in the past. I didn't realize that I had this set to private, and it was feedback that I had from people that wanted to come to me for coaching, that they actually weren't able to see my profile picture and that they would have liked to put a face to the name. So it does make a difference. So in terms of adding the photo, you can just click here by adding the photo, and then you can actually also go in and edit the photo. So you can zoom in or you can zoom out, and you can straighten the photo if needs be, and then you can save it. Okay. And there's also a mechanism for changing the frame that you have around your picture. Okay. Now, another tip would be to have a banner that's personalized to you. So obviously my banner is related to people that want to make changes in their career. That's why I have an outdoor picture and a person looking off into the distance. I could have some wording here written across the banner if I so chose. So think about your industry and what type of employer you want to be working with. And the banner should be customized to present yourself to that employer. So mine is more personalized for individuals that want to come to me for personal coaching. Okay, now to edit the banner, you just click on the pencil icon here. Okay, and I'm just using a personal image here, and I have it filtered. Again, it's possible to zoom, it's possible to straighten, it's possible to filter and adjust that. Now, a top tip would be for somebody that's looking for work to create a personalized banner for them would be to utilize Canva. Okay, and it's canva.com, and there's lots of free banners that you can utilize and personalize on Canva. Now, I'll also pop that into the chat box later on, and it's also included on the presentation slides that I'll be sharing with you following the presentation. Now, another tip would be to personalize your URL. So if you look here at the top right hand of the screen, and if you click on the pencil icon, you can go in here and personalize your URL. Okay, so you can see here at the top, it says edit your custom URL. Now, I have done this in the past. So mine is simply LinkedIn /in/ and it's my first name and my surname all together. Okay, so you want a URL that's suitable that you can cut and paste onto the top of your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so you can just save that and go back then to your profile screen again. Now, if I was a student and I was graduating and I was looking for work, I would indicate that on my profile. And it's possible to do that by clicking on the Open to Work icon here. Okay, so you let people know if you're open to finding a new job. Okay, and that will be highlighted then on your profile and recruiters will see that. Okay, now a really important part of your profile is your headline. And this headline can also be called your elevator pitch. So it's what people see when they search for people in your area or your industry. So if people go into the search and they looked for a career coach, this is what they would see beside my name. They'd see Mary Jane Mulrooney, professional career coach, helping professionals catapult their career with confidence. Okay. Now, it's good to have something catchy here, and that's very relevant to the type of work that you're looking for and the type of employer that you want to attract. So how do you edit this? You hit on the pencil icon and you can scroll down here through all the edit intro sections. So you've got your first name, your last name, you can include pronouns, and then you get to the headline piece that has the asterisks beside it. So, think keywords here that are relevant for the type of roles that you're looking for and the type of industry that you want to work in. A good tip here when you're considering keywords would be to look at the type of jobs that you want to go for. Look at the job descriptions, and that will give you some inspiration for the types of words that you could be using here in your headline. You can also think of some buzzwords that really capture your personality. Here now, don't overdo it, but I would say maybe using 2 to 3 keywords would be good and 2 to 3 buzzwords. Okay, and again, you can scroll down through that and make any changes that you need to. Okay, while I'm here and in this screen, you can select which industry that you're working in or that you wish to work with. And that will further help recruiters find people in the relevant industry that are open to work. And again, you have all your education listed, and you can actually select here which education you want to have showing up higher on the profile. Okay, it's possible to select your location here. And we recommend in the Career Centre to have this selected as Ireland. I don't have it selected to the city because it means that I'm kind of open to work for people in Ireland. Whereas if you wanted to set it for someplace like Carlow or Wexford, it might actually just minimize the outreach that you have and the amounts of hits that you're receiving from recruiters. Here, there's a contact info section, and you can share that with the public. So you can see that your URL can be cut and paste from here also, and whichever professional email address that you choose to use here. For anyone that's graduating in September, it might be a tip to make sure that you're using a personal email address rather than your SE2U email address, or make sure that you do update that when you're graduating. Okay. Okay, so as you scroll on then down through your profile, the About section is very important. Okay, and to edit that again, you can click here on using the pencil icon. So a tip here is to welcome people to your profile. And remember, people buy from people, and you want potential employers and recruiters to know, like, and trust you. So I've started off talking a little bit about my background and then the current work that I do. And then I finish off by I may have some bullet points there about the work that I do with people. And then I have a call to action. So it's letting people know how that they can get in touch with me. And it's also directing people to have a look at my credentials and my recommendations further below in the profile. And then I have it wrapped up with a thanks for reading and signed off. So a nice tip here is to talk a little bit about your background. So for students that are graduating, it might be nice to talk a little bit about your educational background, what your degree was in, what subjects did you excel in, and what areas you're really interested in moving into. And you can also talk a little bit about your work placement and any other roles that you've had some experience in. So, you can keep this to, not as short and sweet as the bio, but if you want to kind of maximize it, a good tip is to use like bullet points. Okay, and then you can also add in some of the key skills that you'd acquired in college and on your work placement and in other extracurricular activities. Okay, and then LinkedIn does have some AI, so it will make some suggestions based on your academic history and your work experience, and you can add those as also here. Okay, so you can just save out of that then and close. Okay, now another important section is your experience. Okay, so you can see here, I've got my work experience since college all listed here. Now, you don't need to go into a great amount of detail. You don't go into as much detail as you do in your CV, but it is good to, list what your name, what your job title was, what the employer name was, and obviously your start and your end date. And then it's good to have some like key points in terms of like what the type of work you were doing, what were the highlights of the work that you did, some of the, presentations that you did or achievements that you've made. And I know Orla will be talking about job searching later on, and she'll mention the STAR technique. But it's a good idea to use the STAR technique, which is the situation, task, action, and role, when you're talking about some of the highlights of your work experience and listing your employment history. Okay. And then you can just edit that again by clicking on the pencil icons and scrolling down. And you can also add media here. So if you did any presentations, if you've got some pictures or images that you'd like to include from those jobs or those roles. For example, you might have a picture of yourself presenting at something. You could add a picture of that. You could add a copy of a slide or, an image of a map that you did or a mind mapping exercise that you did in work. So it's really nice to add things here because people do look at your profiles. They do like to see examples of the work that you've done, the work that you've created. Again, you're not just telling people, you're also showing people the work that you've done through images and documents and copies of presentations. And then you can just scroll back out by clicking the back arrow. And then to finish off, I will just quickly go down through. There's an area where you can add in volunteering experience. So again, this is showing that you've taken on additional responsibility outside of college and outside of paid work. And then it's also possible to ask people for recommendations. Okay, so to simply request a recommendation from somebody that you may have worked with in the past, you can just click on the plus key here and you can ask for a recommendation. And you can search for the people that you've worked with in the past, and you can continue. I won't do that today because I'm not going to search through all my connections. And you can simply just, write them a short note and saying, I'd really like you to write a recommendation for the recent presentations that you saw me to complete at an event. Okay, perfect. Now, so that's
Yes, so
the
that's
12 points on the LinkedIn profile. Sorry, did you want to come in there,
yeah,
Orla?
I do, yeah. So what I might do is we might go into CV straight before we do the job searching on LinkedIn, and we'll come back to that maybe in the job searching section, and so that we're giving plenty of time for the CV and LinkedIn if that's and interview if that's okay.
That sounds brilliant. Yes, I'll stop sharing
Yeah.
my screen then, Orla, and I'll
Yeah.
share some of those links in the chat. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so hi everyone, back again. Just to go through CV. So we're trying to kind of squeeze in as much as we possibly can into this session. So that's how I want to make sure to get the CV and interview in, so that you have all of the things that you need. So just going to share this. Okay, so one of the things about CV is that they are still very important. Okay, so this survey was done by the University of Limerick. They did a survey of employers, and employers say that the survey says that the CV and the cover letter is still really important. So though you're applying for lots of jobs online and you're applying for jobs through LinkedIn, the CV is and the cover letter is going to be still very important, and that's out of 340 different employers. So it's definitely something that we need to pay attention to. So what makes a good CV? A good CV is a good layout and very relevant content. They are the two most important things. The layout is to do with first impressions. So just like you would dress up for an interview to give a good first impression, you would also then want to make sure that your CV is very well presented. So if the layout is all over the place and very untidy, then it's not going to give a very good impression, obviously. And I will have a model CV that I'm going to put up here to show you just what a good kind of neat and simple layout looks like, and it's just in a Word document. So it's nothing that you don't have to go in and look for templates. A lot of, I think people feel that they need to go in and get a very nice template online. But in actual fact, templates are not good, because what they do is they force you into a design and they can leave you without content that is really important. And then the next most important thing is your content. So very important that those two are gotten right. So how do you make sure that the content of your CV is relevant? So the way you do that is by looking at the job description. So what I would be saying to you here is you analyze the job description, you take colored pencils, whatever it takes, and highlight all of those areas that they are looking for, the requirements of the job. Now, this doesn't mean that, like what I was saying at the very beginning of this, those who were what might have missed it on the recording because we were late on the recording, but a lot of people, when they're applying for jobs, feel that like they have to squeeze themselves into what the employer is looking for. And you're going to think that what I'm saying now is a complete contradiction to what I was saying earlier, which is that employers want you to be authentic and to be you above everything else. So it is very important that you are you in your CV, but you are you in relation to the job description. So you have to take both of these into account. So you will be not every employer knows that they're not going to get 100% of what they're looking for into a job description, into a job and into a role. They know that their job description is actually a wish list. It is an idealized version of what they're looking for. At the same time, you would need to hit on a few of those points, and maybe, 70, 60% of what they're looking for. If you have that amount, then it is a good idea to apply for the job. So it is very important that you look at the job description and map it to your CV. So the CV then, there are places on your CV where you can really show who you are. So just like Mary Jane did within the LinkedIn, in your headline, you're going to be talking about who you are and what you're looking for, or what your expertise is, I should say. In the same way, on your profile of your CV, you're going to be making sure that you get all of the highlights up there on your CV. So the profile is something that, you know, you will be putting what you're doing now, what your skills are, what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, and then where it is, why you're applying for this job at some stage during the within the profile. I'm going to ask Mary Jane, sorry, you wouldn't mind turning off your camera, Mary Jane. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, it's just a distraction a little bit. Okay, so then within that, then if you are in a computer role, a technical role, that you can put your technical skills after the profile. So it's very important to highlight those. So if they're looking for Python or they're looking for some kind of certification, even CompTI for cybersecurity, if they're looking for data analytics, so all of that should be highlighted then at the very beginning if it's a technical role. After that, you put in your education. The order of this can change because if you're in, say, social care, you're not necessarily going to be putting your technical skills at the very beginning. So you might put that into your second page. And the look of this slide makes it look like it is maybe just one page, but in actual fact, your CV should be 2 pages because that will give you an opportunity then to expand on your work experience, on your skills, on your education, and those things that are important to the employer in the job description. So very important to use the job description as to what you highlight in your CV. What I normally recommend people do actually is to have a long CV and then have a CV for each job. So if you just put everything, throw everything into one CV, file it as your long CV, and then when a job comes up, if you pull the relevant information from your long CV and then save it into a CV with the name of the company. And the name of the role, the company mostly, because the role could be a similar role somewhere else, like business analyst. So save it into the name of the company. And then if that role, a similar role comes up again, you could always go back into that company and pull it. So that is just a tip for you to be able to kind of easily deal with all the CVs that you will be sending out if you're looking for jobs in the next while. So what will make your CV stand out? It's the summary, basically. It's what in your education you might have picked a project that you wanted to do, and that project will say something about you. So it's important that you expand and describe on that project and include within it what was the aim of the project. Describe it as if you're describing it to somebody who is non-technical or somebody who has a child, a 9-year-old child. So if you can describe it in 4 or 5 sentences and then say what technologies you used, if there is technologies, and then a grade. So that will very definitely say something about you uniquely. Then your work is obviously unique to you. So make sure that you include any achievements, any performance. That would be hugely important. In your technical skills, make sure you put your proficiency level. That will also make you stand out because if you have more experience in one area than another, then you can show that in your technical skills section. So it can be after your as I say, after your profile section, if it is a technical role, and otherwise into the second page. How else can you show yourself as being standing out from everybody else? You might have done some online courses. You might have done some training on other jobs or training that you've done yourself. We're going to be looking at LinkedIn Learning later to see if you've maybe done some LinkedIn Learning courses. You can add those in here. That makes you stand out. These are the extra things that you've done outside of your education and outside of your work that maybe you have done, and these will be shown more in your interest sections then. So if you've done voluntary work, you've got some creative things that you do like crafting, if you play sport, any of those things are going to show you as standing out. So really important to include that section as well. And then include your references. Some of you here are on placements. If you're on placements, you need to include your reference. If you're not going for a placement, then you can just put references available on request. Usually you would have one academic and one other. So somebody maybe in a job role who supervised you or was your manager, and they might agree to be a referee for you. Make sure you ask permission and make sure it's a good reference, that they would give you a good one. So that's just some tips about how you make yourself stand out when it comes to your CV. Okay, so here is just an example of a profile. Sorry, I know that there was a couple of questions, and Mary Jane and myself are referring to the questions that students came up with when they signed up for this session. And one of them was, what if you have a lot of experience, but it's in a different area? So you might say have done an engineering degree at some stage in your career, and you worked in it for a few years, and then you decided you wanted to go into data analytics, something like that. Well, in that case, then there are ways that you can't first of all assume that the employer is not going to be interested in your engineering degree. So for instance, engineering is a very logical, methodical kind of a career. It is one that will fit very nicely with, say, data analytics. And so therefore, it would be important to make sure that you actually put that into your profile as well. So you could start off with saying, currently completing a master's or a degree in IT management, with a previous degree in engineering or whatever your previous degree is in. Employers like diversity. It also makes you stand out because if you've done something different beforehand, you're bringing a whole new set of skills, you're bringing a whole new perspective. So it means that you are making yourself stand out straight away from what you did beforehand. So don't see what you've done beforehand as a disadvantage. It's actually an advantage. So even if you have 20 years of experience in a different area, it still means that you gained experience in a lot of the transferable skills that we talk about, and it still means that you have a whole new way of looking at things. So make sure to bring in things. So there will be things like project management, leadership roles that you may have had, problem solving that you took part, that you did within a project, people management. All of those things are across the board very, very desirable by employers. So make sure you emphasize these from a previous degree, even if you or a previous experience, even if you feel that experience is not relevant. It is. It definitely is. And try to give some indication of what it was that led you to change your career from one thing to another. So it might have been something that you were doing during your engineering that maybe had a data analytics task within it, and you can say that, you can say that you had a particular thing that you were doing, and you thought that it was something that you were good at and that you enjoyed, and so you decided that you were going to do a master's in data analytics. So this is just an example that I'm using. So make sure to put that in your profile and show how doing your current studies complements your whole career plan. So employers like when you have a career plan. They like when you know who you are, you know what your skills are, you know what you want to develop, and you know what career you want to go into. These all make you stand out. So make sure to include those. Okay, so just as a format, this is something that you can do for your education, just as a way of showing if you are in a different career, if you were in a different career, and now you're in data analytics. So you give more time, or sorry, more space on your CV to your current education. So you want to get a job in data analytics. You don't want a job in engineering. So when it comes to your education section, give more space on your CV to your data analytics. It's not to discount your previous experience, which you do need to include, but it does mean that you give more space. So all the time on a CV, you are making space for the things that are relevant to the job description. So you give more space to the things that are relevant, less space to the things that are not relevant, but you do pick out the things like from your previous career that they will be interested in, like the project management, the leadership skills, whatever. For your education, then, within your project, you can show some of your current skills that you want to get into because you're trying to get into a different field. So you want to show what you've done in a project on your current course that will show some of the skills and maybe technology skills that you have. Okay, so just on a profile, I just want you to look at both of these profiles on a CV. And Mary Jane, do make sure to let me know if I'm going over time here. So this is A and B. So the first one and the second one. And Mary Jane, if you want to have a look at the chat, which one would you think would be the best one to put on your CV?
Hi, Orla. People are saying B.
Why do you think people? I can't see the chat. I'm sorry about that.
Clarity.
Okay,
Details.
cool.
Details given.
Great.
Specific
Great.
detail.
Mm-hmm.
Bullet points.
Yes, very good. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Nicer format to view.
Yes. Okay. So very good. That is exactly what I wanted to get across here, because believe you me, both Mary Jane and myself would have got a huge amount of the A ones. And not only that, but they would list ad infinitum a load of great skills that they think that the employer is looking for. Now, the other thing, I'm going to bring in AI here. AI is something that students are using, and it's something that we do recommend that you can use to come up with a good profile, okay, or with a job description for a job in Supermax or in Centra, okay, it can be great for that. But what happens is that students take that, they cut and paste it, and they put it into their CV. And that is exactly what employers are giving out about. I was on a panel there recently as a careers advisor for brewing and distilling, which is one of the courses we run here. There was two HR people, one from Diageo and the other one from Irish Distillers. And they were sickened by the amount of CVs that they were getting that were generated by AI. So this is why we wanted to run this session and to really show how you need to be individual on your CV, and you need to be focused on the kind of jobs that you're going for and not be trying to just go for every job that's out there that maybe is not suitable, or using AI to come up with all those nice keywords that employers are looking for. They're not looking for that. They're looking for you. They're looking for your individual expertise or your individual studies, what you've studied, what you think you're good at, what you feel that you're interested in. That's what they're looking for. So it's really, really important that you get that across in this section, which is your profile section. Okay. So thank you for your input. That's all very good. I'm glad you spotted that as well. So this is an example, what you are doing now, what and how much work experience you have. So do quantify everything. What are you passionate about or particularly interested in? They do want to know this. And it might be that you were doing cybersecurity and that you have a particular interest in pen testing. Say it. But also say within it that you want to work in a real world environment to develop further skills in all areas of cybersecurity or software development or data analytics. Okay, so show that you are applying because you know what you want and you know this company is going to offer it to you. So make sure you have what are you looking for and who and why. So I had an example there. I was going to do an example with you guys actually and just see if we could come up with one, but we're not going to have that time. So we're going to keep going. Work experience, include any recognition from managers. So this is where it doesn't matter if your work experience from previous was irrelevant, because if you've got recognition for performance of some kind, it means that performance you will carry with you into the next job. So you might have got employee of the month, shows that that you obviously performed well on that job and you likely perform well on the next job. Include any increases or salary or bonuses because of a job well done. Performance reviews that were excellent, any training you did, any projects that you worked on that were successful, and try to quantify within there. Sorry, I'm just going to take a sip of water. How am I doing on time, Mary?
Orla,
Okay.
it's nearly 25 past now.
Okay, right. So
I'm just conscious of Q&A. Now, there's not that many questions coming in on the chat, but there is one, and I've taken note of that, and we can deal with that at the end.
Okay, grand. So, so if you have no experience, and we're coming to the end of the CV, but I do need to get to some of the interview. Anything that we don't cover here, what I would say to you is that we're going to be piling on those resources into the chat, including the PowerPoint presentation, and there will be the recording. So if you don't have any experience, and quite often students worry that they don't have any experience, so what you need to do is increase the space for your college activities. Show skills from voluntary work, projects, show enthusiasm for your chosen career path, and show good grades from college. And then we have these technical skills. These are skills that employers have recognized as being very valuable. When you look in the technical skills, you see things like collaborative, self-motivated, commercial awareness, which are not technical skills that you would normally associate. Yet these are the things that employers are saying are technical and are things that they need. There is IT skills there, but there is also creativity. So they're looking at you, the person, always. Okay, do not input CV at the top of the page. These are do nots. And I would have covered these beforehand, so I'm not going to go into them now, and they will be there for you to have a look at. Your cover letter, there is a sample cover letter that we will be dropping into the chat, and these are the various paragraphs, what you can put in each of these paragraphs for a cover letter. So we'll put a sample in there. There is that sample that is there that will give you a good idea of how to phrase a cover letter. So the idea of a CV is not to sell yourself short, to make sure you shine, to not give a black and white version. This is what I always say to students, not a black and white version, a full color version of who you are. Very, very, very important. And thank you for listening. We do want to take questions, but I also have some CV and job searching tips, but we're going to stop now and give you an opportunity to ask some questions. I'll stop sharing here, Mary Jane. Is that okay with you? I know we're changing the format a little, but we do want to let students in here at this stage.
Yeah, perfect. So there was one question in the chat, and it was if we added modules in the CV, it may be extended to 3 to 4 pages. So that's a question in relation to including the modules studied in terms of the degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just very quickly share my screen for a second, okay? Because I want to, as I say, this is a practical session, and I want you to see how it is in a. Are people seeing that? No, I don't think so.
No, I can't see anything there now at the moment, Orla.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay, can you see anything now?
Not yet, no.
No. Okay, so I'm just going to put it in the chat, right? So when you're putting in all your modules, what you're doing is all you need to do is in 2 lines, list the modules of your current year. Okay, so you're in your final year, you can list the modules in your current year and maybe your previous year, but they can be done across. So you can just say modules include, and then list them all across data. And you can put a line, a nice line there, data, Python, and then you can put in whatever business. Okay, so if you do that, you've 2 lines for your current year, you've 2 lines for your previous year. Do include a grade if they're a really good grade, and make sure that you're not taking up too much space with the modules, because they only really want to glance at it. You don't have to list them down or bullet point them or do anything like that. Mary Jane, feel free to put on your camera now. Yeah.
Hi, Orla. Just to add into that, yeah, I
Yeah.
suppose I would see that a lot, that people maybe put them into a table or list them down.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it's going to take over a huge portion of your CV. But if you list them beside each other and just simply put a comma in between the subjects or put the grade in brackets beside the module name, you'd be surprised, like 1 or 2 or 3 lines, and you'll have your modules all listed for a year. And it doesn't end up taking over a page or a half a page off your CV.
Yeah.
And it's nice to give employers a flavour of what you actually did study. And like if there's a particular subject that you've excelled in, like they might be looking for somebody that's really good at strategic management. And if you've scored really well in a particular module, that will be highlighted when they look down at your CV. So I always recommend that you do include the subjects, because every degree is different in terms of the subjects and the contents from university to university.
Okay, so another question, any tips for older students targeting jobs in industries that often employ younger developers? So, I mean, companies do sometimes have a lot of younger students, but it doesn't mean that they're not looking for older employees, because sometimes actually an older employee can sort of be, the guide to the younger students, or the younger employees. So what I always say is don't rule yourself out. Let them be the ones to rule yourself out, not you. So you think that this company is only employing younger graduates or whatever. Okay, but that's in your head. It's not in the employer's head. The employer knows exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for the skills. They might be looking for experience as well. So you are very well placed then to go for that role. So I would always say to you, apply anyway, especially if it's a job that you think you like and that you have that you could do.
Okay, there's another question there. Do you recommend a photograph on a CV? No would be the answer to that. There's absolutely no need to include a photo on a CV. And you also have to consider if the CVs are being read by CV reading software, that tables and photographs and images on a CV can actually cause your CV to go unnoticed, because generally those things would be looking for keywords and key skills and experience. So that would be my answer to that one. There's another question there, Orla, if you'd like to take it. Just a quick question. Should we make multiple CVs for multiple jobs with one base CV?
Okay, so are you seeing a different one to I am? Because is there one before or after? Oh, I see. Okay, so Avroz, you came up with that one a while ago, so I'll answer that one. Just a quick question: should we make multiple CVs? Okay, so this is what I was saying. The tip is have one long CV, save it as your long CV. When a job comes up, pull from it the stuff that's important or that you want to highlight. Remember that don't leave anything out of your timeline. It's very important you don't leave anything out of your work timeline. It's just the economy of space that you give to some things will be those things that the employer is looking for. So you're now making a new CV from your long CV, which is for a particular job, and you save that under the company name and role. Company name and role, save that CV, and then you can go back to it then if the same role comes up again in another company. You can go back to that CV, and a lot of the stuff might be the same, but always tailor each CV. But yeah, multiple CVs, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a mistake that we see a lot, people sending off CVs or printing 10 copies of a CV and sending them on and not tailoring them. So I would say that quality of applications over quantity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just on the mixed heritage question there, I'll just take that, Mary Jane.
Perfect.
So that's an interesting one, and it might, the more and more international students that we have here as well, it might be something that you might like the answer to. So no, quite often in big corporate companies, they have multicultural teams, and you might be working across multicultural teams, either online or in person or whatever. So it is maybe good if it comes up at an interview, that, are you comfortable working in multicultural teams? Then it might be a good idea to bring in your heritage. Otherwise, It's not really necessary because we're all going to be, everybody is going to be treated the same in an interview process. So it's only if you bring it up. It's not something that you're going to be asked or that you need to highlight in any way. But if there's an opportunity and you see an opportunity and they are looking for somebody to work in a multicultural team, then yes, you could bring it up and highlight it. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. If you want to kind of trash that out further, you can certainly. Aoife, yeah.
The next question there, Orla, is what do you do if the feedback is you have no experience?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the feedback being that you haven't got the job because you've no experience. So that means that somebody else who has got the experience got the job. That's fair enough. The employer was looking for experience. So you would hopefully, if you've no experience, be looking for an entry-level role. So you'll be going for entry-level roles then if you don't have any experience in it. So go for graduate programs, internships, that kind of thing. There's nothing really you can do if you don't have the experience and they're looking for experience. But you can show that you have experience through better maybe on your CV, through your projects, through anything that you've done that might show within your personal projects, for instance, are really important for places like Amazon. If they see that you have personal projects, they are very interested to know what your personal project is. And that is experience. So you need to maybe show a little bit more the experience that you do have. But if you've gone through the interview process and they say, look, we have somebody else who's more experienced, then there's nothing you can do about that. But certainly from the beginning stages, which is where we're at now and what we're advising you on, show as much experience through your college, through your interests, all of that as much as possible.
Okay. Should you be honest about things you have not got experience in during interviews? Obviously, you can say you can upskill or learn on the job, but what is your advice here?
Things you have not got experience in during the interview.
So similar to the last question.
Yeah. So yeah, you should be honest, absolutely. But you don't say no to anything. You don't say, so if they say, look, we're looking for somebody who's got experience in Python, you say, well, I'm familiar with Python, but I haven't gone in depthly in it within my experience at college. But I have looked at it in my own time, and it is something that I have on my list to to further upskill in. Also, because I have Python, I feel I can easily transition into learning Java. Or sorry, I have Java, so I can easily transition into learning Python because the fundamental rules are the same, or whatever the language is for technology. So do try and put a positive spin on it, but do be honest. Okay, so there's two things there, Aoife, and it is about like kind of balancing things. It is about saying, well, you don't have maybe that amount of experience, but you have this, and you plan on increasing your skills, both personally and maybe, that you're a quick learner and that you learn quickly on the job. And you can give an example, for instance, when I started in another job, I wasn't able to do the CRM. I wasn't familiar with the CRM, but I picked it up very quickly because I've worked in CRMs in other places. So there's things like that you can say, but be honest. Definitely.
I think a key point there is your transferable skills. So, for example, you might have been working in a shop. You may not have had office experience previously, but the amount of skills that you acquired working in a job in a shop that are transferable to an office is huge. So it's how you present that to the prospective employer as well. So don't be underestimating the amount of transferable skills that you do have. There's a question there, Orla, from an international student. What other details should international students add to their CV?
Yeah, so you'd have to be a bit more specific about that, because the details you put on your CV are all whatever is relevant to the job, but without leaving anything out from your timeline of your work experience. So there's nothing different for an international student. You should put the same as what anybody would be putting. You just make it relevant to the job description. Feel free to come back and clarify that, though.
What is the maximum recommended page count for a CV? We generally recommend no longer than 2 pages. On that one. And again, if you have any more questions, let us know. How do you show or tell that you have experience but you don't have any experience? I think we've touched on that, Jermaine, in the last few minutes, maybe since you've submitted that question. You know, it's talking about what experience that you do have, and talking about your transferable skills, and then trying to upskill in areas that you're lacking by maybe doing some online courses or certifications. But it's really how you present yourself to the employer and talk about your previous experience. Now there's a specific one there for me. Do you mind if I share my LinkedIn, and if you can see at first glance what you think about it? Yeah, Afroz, if you want to, I think we might do that offline. If you want to get in touch with me by email, that would be perfect. careers.wx@setu.ie. If you have work experience data, you touched on that one already, Orla, I think. I think
no, if you have work experience dated back to 1994. Oh, you mean with my question about having a lot of experience?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the model CV that I am going to be putting up, and I might even put it up now, will show you how you might deal with that. So when it comes to a huge amount of experience, you can use one line for some of your roles. So in other words, you would put the date, the role, or sorry, the company, the role, date, company, role. So that's one line. The role can sometimes be self-explanatory. If you want, you could put a line in underneath it about what you did. If there is very important skills or projects that you worked on, make sure to include those. But otherwise, you can be, again, economy of space on your CV. It's about giving more space to the things that are current and relevant, but if they're not, there might be some relevance in your previous work experience as well. So do give a little bit of space to those as well if they are very relevant.
And there's a question from Robert. Other than LinkedIn and CV, are there other in real life resources you suggest, e.g. job fairs, meetings? Does SET host any of these? Are they planning open to hosting more meetings like these? Well, there's a lot in that actually, Robert, but I suppose just in terms of in real life resources, if we have
that's
time.
IRL, I think that means Irish resources.
Oh, Irish resources. Okay, well, if we have time, I was going to briefly run through LinkedIn Learning with the students, and I was also going to refer people to the job search section of LinkedIn. And then in terms of other events, there is the Grad Ireland Fair is it scheduled for September, October next year, Orla?
It is. It's the 2nd of October. It's not up on their website yet, but you're hearing it here first. And I'm going to give you, there's a couple of slides, and I have just prepared them here, and I'm going to see if I can put them up here actually. Can I? Of events that are coming up.
Brilliant.
Okay, can you see those events? So there's one for people with disabilities coming up soon, Building for the Future. There's also another one there, Women in STEM. There's a Jobs Expo in Cork on Saturday, and there is a one in Galway on the in Limerick on the 22nd. These are employer events. So Jobs Expo the link is there, so you can go in there and check all the time. Grad Ireland is there. Register on your careers LinkedIn page. So both Mary Jane and myself are putting up jobs from employers who come to us on the LinkedIn group, private group. And I've put up Abbott, we're in touch, and they are looking for loads of people in Kilkenny to work in Kilkenny. And I just put those up this morning. So that's in that LinkedIn private group. It's unlisted, but it's only for SET, Carlow and Wexford students. So make sure that you come on to that and have a look at the jobs that are being posted up there regularly. Okay. And yeah, that's it. The other thing that we recommend is LinkedIn and Indeed and jobs.ie, public jobs. These are sites that we are recommending that you look for jobs on, and I'll put that up there in the chat as well. This is kind of not the conventional way of doing things because these are in the slides, but it's handy to have them here as well. So they're the job sites that we recommend.
And a few people asking for us to share the link for the job alerts on LinkedIn. I'll do that. There was one question there that came in from Jermaine Orla. I have another question. If manager or supervisor say they will call in a few days or a week or so, should I call them back for any updates? I would generally recommend that you call back maybe if you haven't heard anything within 2 weeks. And then I would generally maybe recommend a second follow-up, but you don't want to be hounding people. What would your opinion be on that one, Orla?
Yeah, I usually say, if you haven't heard back in a week, to drop a line, week or 5 days, drop a line politely to the HR person who you were dealing with and say, just want to express my interest in this role again. And is there any update on it? Just very short, sweet. You can say, I know you're busy, but just was wondering if there was any update on this. But don't stop applying because you're waiting to hear back from someone else. You know what I mean? Just make sure you keep applying, so that you're not tempted to hound them.
Yes.
So just keep moving forward, keep your trajectory going forward all the time. Yeah.
And I think the balance a balance between emails and phone calls is important as well, because it's so easy to forward an email and follow up with somebody, but it does irritate people if it's happening too many times.
Yeah, I've put up the link there, Mary Jane.
Yeah,
perfect. That's for the jobs coming up. Yeah. So
yeah, I think we were doing that at the same time.
Oh, were we? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
There's a few questions now. Yeah.
That we might have missed. Did we miss some questions, or have we? Oh, what are your thoughts on contacting companies even if they're not displaying their hiring? Okay, so this was going to be in the presentation that I was giving as well, is that there is a very important thing that we need to tell you, which is that a lot of companies, they don't necessarily go straight to a jobs board when they have a vacancy. They quite often look within their companies and they look at the staff that they have and they ask their staff to make referrals. So this is one way that they do. So it is important for you to actually start talking to people, to stay connected to your classmates who might be getting into jobs. Like I did talk to a student who had some friends who were in Abbott, and they quite often they would definitely have a referral system. So that might not be a job that's actually up on their website, but it is a job that they're looking to fill. So your friend is going to know about that job. So that is one way of doing it. So it's really important that you look at other ways of looking for jobs and use your LinkedIn. So get that profile up to scratch as best you can and make it look good, make it look professional, make it look like it's you. Okay, this is what we're trying to get across today. Make sure it looks like it's you and what you uniquely bring to the table. And then you can start looking at other people who are in there, look at the companies that you're interested in, what roles they have, reach out to somebody and say, listen, I'm a student or I've just finished studying such and such, and I wonder, would you have 5 minutes for either an email chat or a phone call to talk about your role? And this is what we call an informational interview. And it's a really good way of just increasing your network and also getting some information on a job role that you're interested in. So do have a look at those kind of ways. And I'm going to put up another slide there of all of the things that you can be doing. Let me see. They say that there are only 30% of jobs are advertised, 70% are located through other means. So it's really important that you network. Networking is important.
Somebody is wondering, Orla, if it would be possible for you to share the link for the event in Kilkenny.
Yeah.
There's a question from Afroz that I can take while you're doing that, Orla. When I apply for a job on LinkedIn, I can see who is the recruiter. Can we reach out to the recruiter as well, like drop a text on LinkedIn? That's a really good question. Myself and Orla were actually talking about that this morning. So it's generally recommended that you do not contact the recruiter, that you apply for the role through LinkedIn and not contact a recruiter at that point, because it could be seen as canvassing. However, it is perfectly acceptable to research the company on LinkedIn and to connect with some of the other employees and have a look at what their profiles and what their skill sets look like for kind of research purposes. So it's fine to apply for the job on LinkedIn, but at that point, we wouldn't recommend reaching out to the recruiter, because it could be seen as canvassing. What are your thoughts on contacting, even if they're not displaying they are hiring? I think Orla touched off on that one. I think you've answered that question.
Yeah.
So what do sorry, go on, Orla.
No, go on. No, that's fine.
There was another question there.
What does canvassing mean? So I'll just
I didn't see that. Sorry.
Yeah, canvassing is basically where, you know, a job is put out there and you are trying to let's say get ahead of the posse, maybe is the word. What would be the word be? It would be that you're trying to wangle your way into being a more favorable candidate than everybody else. So it's kind of tipping the level playing field a little bit by trying to use contacts and trying to get in on with a person or get in with a company outside of the recruitment process. So if it's outside of the recruitment process, it would be seen as canvassing.
You'll actually see no canvassing written on an awful lot of job applications now. But thanks for asking that question. It was a really good question.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Can we add them to our connection, the recruiter? So remember, there are two different types of recruiters. There's internal recruiters within a company, and then there's recruitment agencies. So recruitment agencies, you know, now you probably know this, you know, they're companies who are basically have clients, and the clients are the companies that are looking for people. So, you know, certainly, obviously, you can connect with them. That's no problem. With the recruiter themselves, you can connect with them. And a lot of them actually put up on LinkedIn that they're hiring on LinkedIn. So absolutely, you can connect with them there, because they're actually saying that they're hiring and they're looking for people to connect with them. So, and then they will go to your LinkedIn and they'll have a look at your LinkedIn and see whether you are somebody that they could look for. So there is a difference between connecting in that way and then canvassing. Okay, canvassing might be where you private message the hiring manager and you kind of say, listen, I hear that you're looking for, you know, a HR person, you know, and I have this, that, and the other, and I know your grandmother, and I know you're this, and I know you. That's canvassing, okay? So, but connecting, yeah, that's different. It's just, I suppose Mary Jane and myself would be very conscious of it, because it was a big thing maybe before social media took over as being a way of hiring candidates, you know, so it's just be careful how you connect.
Yeah, and read a job description, because sometimes it might have something along those lines written at the end of the job application. But yeah, obviously connecting with somebody is fine. And then canvassing is kind of like a step further, where you're trying to, you know, kind of go a roundabout way of actually getting the job. So I think that's the difference, really, Orla, isn't it? It's kind of following the standard job application procedure versus trying to maybe bypass an element of it.
Yeah. If you know their grandmother, as Avros was saying, if you know, it will come up at the interview.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not something that you would say at the interview process, because you want to show that you are a good candidate on the basis of your skills and your experience, not on the basis of the fact that you know their grandmother. So you only say this if it comes up, you know, as an interview. So there's a rapport time during an interview when you're talking to each other, you know, casually to relax you, and it might come up then, but it may not. You know, they might ask you where you're from, and you know, oh, I know somebody in that area, and then you say, yeah, well, I actually know your grandmother, you know, because da da da. I lived on that road. You know, that kind of way, it would come up that way, but not as a way of you pushing yourself forward. You know, that's not on.
There's a question there from Jade. What do you recommend to do if you are at the end of a PhD but haven't graduated yet and the employer is hesitant on hiring you because you don't have the degree yet?
Mm.
That's a great question, Jade.
They're hesitant in regard to your visa. Is that right? Or is it in regard to the fact that you won't be able to give enough time to the job?
Because they don't have the degree yet. So they haven't yet, you know, graduated with their PhD, that they're at the end of their PhD, but they haven't actually like formally
Yeah, but
graduated.
is the employer nervous about taking that person on because of the visa, or is it because that they don't have the qualification as yet? You know what? Let's see.
It's more pay difference. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, yeah. So the pay difference, right? I mean, there should be an understanding. You could say when it comes to pay, if they've gotten to that stage, you're in the door already. So you need to actually get into negotiation mode. So negotiation mode is where you say, well, you know, I don't mind being paid such and such an amount of money until I get the degree. And then if there's an agreement, then that I would then go onto the scale for a PhD. So you've got this job. So you just need to negotiate. What is it that the employer really wants? Give it to them, and then negotiate for you on, you know, when you're in the job, that they review this at a certain period of time. And I would operate it that way, definitely. Yeah.
I think that's really good advice, Orla. And Afroz has an interview in an hour and he's finding this session
Wow.
really, really helpful. So
And we didn't
very
even
best
get
of
to
luck.
the interview. We didn't even get to the interview stage. So, which is, you know, so what I'm going to do is just put in the STAR technique there for you, Avros. So the STAR technique, I hope you know about. You know, it's where you are explaining about your previous work experience with something that they've asked you, like, you know, can you give us an example of a time you worked as part of a team? So you come up with the situation. Yeah, well, when I worked in such and such a place, my role was this. The task, well, during that time in this role, we had a project that we were working on where we had to do this and lay out what the task was. Then the action was, well, this is what I did. Be careful of the we. A lot of people say, we did this, because you're quite often working as part of a team, but make sure you say we and then you say I. My responsibility was to do this, this, and this, and then the result. So the result is at the end. How did it all play out with regard to the project? You know, so make sure that tidies it all up. It stops you from waffling, and it's a really good kind of formula, if you like, for any of the questions that they might ask you. It's happening to a few, is it, Jade? That's interesting. PhD students that they're not being okay. Very best. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's all good. We're coming to the end of the session now, Mary Jane. And we just, okay, right. This is another question that has just come in. I'd like to focus 30 minutes on why you believe you're a strong fit for our enterprise team. Specifically, how would you approach your territory plan, tier accounts, and build pipelines? Is this Avros putting this in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah. Examples of how you've done this in the current period and how it led to running successful deal cycles. Examples of how you've managed to complex deals. Yeah. So just take whatever is in your experience and try and relate it to the kind of things that they're looking for. Okay. Yeah. So why you have a strong fit for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry to cross you
Yeah,
there, Orla.
no,
Just
work away.
in terms of Afro's questions there, it can be really good to use some of the words that are being asked in the question when you're responding to the employer with your answer. So it make sure that you're keeping yourself on track in terms of your answering their question, and it ensures that you're kind of touching on the points that they're asking and what they want to pick up on. And it's important that if they do ask for examples, you can draw on your STAR technique then, because what they're looking for is specific examples of when you've done that in your past role. And the whole basis of the STAR technique is that past performance predicts future behavior. So you're setting the scene and you're giving an example of when you've demonstrated that key competency in the past in a role, or in a project that you've been a part of. So I think this STAR technique is really useful in terms of any of those questions that you're bringing today.
So the dress code then, Aoife, for an interview, it is, I mean, it's something, as time goes on, it has changed. So it used to be where everybody dressed up to the nines, and it's always a good plan to dress up to the nines. But smart is good as well. So colors, yeah, sometimes red, people recommend not to wear red to an interview, so muted colors, I would say, navies and, but you can be color, it's summer, so it's nice to be in a bright, maybe white shirt or something for a man, and shoes and all that. Be comfortable, make sure you're comfortable, but look well and look professional. Mary Jane put up a nice picture of somebody there who looked very professional. So, and we talked about branding. So you want, wherever you're going to be talking to people about your career, to look the part, so yeah, so that's the only thing. Black is fine, so yeah, that's my only comment on colors anyway. Okay, great. Now so we're at 1 o'clock now, and we sort of don't want to hold people up beyond what we promised. If people are in a situation like Avros where you have an interview coming up and you want to contact either myself or Mary Jane today, please do so after this meeting here, and we'll be happy to deal with it. So I'll be here for the rest of the day. I have something on at 3 o'clock, but if you are in that kind of a situation, please feel free to get in touch. So happy that you have felt that you could ask us all those questions, and I hope that you've gained some benefit from listening to the answers. And as I say, we're not gone away. We're going to be loading up a lot of things like model CVs and our PowerPoints, so that you have those. And also there are some suggestions about what you can do to network as well. So just make sure you do go back over the slides, because we didn't get through them all today. Thank you for your feedback there, Aoife and Robert, and guest. Delighted that so many of you could join us, and we will be passing this recording on to other people who weren't able to be here today. So thank you again for making it a very interactive session that others are going to learn from. So thank you. Mary Jane?
Yes, I'd just like to thank everybody and wishing everyone the very best for the summer and for next year. And just to reiterate that, like, the hard work is done. Now it's just time to make it shine for you on your CV and on your LinkedIn profile. And, just believe in yourself and be confident. And I think I had the quote on my original list of slides, Orla, but I took it off. But knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So if you know yourself, and you know what you're talking about, you'll come across so confident and enthusiastic and positive to the employer.
Yeah, so I just put up that because one student was just saying, before we go, we have another session. Do we have another session like this? So we did, we can have sessions if people are interested. So, but we need to know that there's enough people interested for sure. So we'll have a think about that and see if it would be of use. If it's of use, certainly we put it on.
Perfect. And I can get in touch with you, Jermaine, as well, and let you know what we decide on that. And thanks very much for your question.
Yeah, so I'm going to just maybe stop the recording now if I can. Stop recording, yeah.
And just on another session, is it like a Q&A that people want, or would they like a rerun of that? Just for clarity, if you pop it into the chat. Q&A, more about the interview. Okay,
yeah.
More. Okay,
yeah.
Q&A.
More on interviews. Okay, and more. So the Q&A is helpful. So we could do another CV session. So maybe what we'll do is an interview session. So maybe we'll come back on and offer an interview session in the next while. So we'll come back to you on that, if that's okay. And now I'm going to stop the recording. Okay, thanks. Bye.
All right, thanks everybody. Best of luck.